Sure, Chris. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this presentation. The presentation is titled A Tour of Several Free Tools for LabVIEW Programmers. I am Petru Tarabuta. I am originally from Romania, but I studied a triple E degree in the UK and have been living in the UK ever since and working here. I'm a certified LabVIEW architect, CTD, and an NI certified professional instructor as well, and I help customers through my own company, Robusto Systems. So this is an introduction to this presentation. This presentation is a quick tour of several free tools that can be useful to us as LabVIEW programmers. The motivation is that it's always useful to be aware of reliable and useful tools, especially when they are free. Some of the tools might be well known by a lot of people. Other tools might be less so. And I hope that everyone can at least find one new tool that they didn't know about before. Most of the following tools can be useful to programmers regardless of their programming language. So not just to us as LabVIEW programmers, but pretty much to any type of programmer. And in fact, actually to knowledge workers in general. So I don't think you even need to be a programmer to use these tools. You can be any sort of person who uses computers quite a lot. I have been using some of the tools for a few years and others for just a few months. So I will be able to describe my personal experience with each of the tools. I'm not an expert in any of the tools. I don't claim to be an expert in any of these. I guess I'm a competent user of some of the tools and a pretty novice user of others. Just like a disclaimer in terms of operating systems, some of the tools that will be discussed are applicable to Windows only. I know that a lot of people now develop LabVIEW on Linux as well. So some of these tools I think are applicable just to Windows. And that's because primarily I use primarily Windows in my work. And this presentation is found in a public GitHub repository, which is found at this link here, if you would like to download the presentation. All of the download links for all of the tools are linked on the last slide of this presentation. So if you would like to have all of those links, you can download the presentation from the GitHub repository and you have all the links there. In terms of questions, I will share my screen for most of the presentation to show the tools in action. So please ask questions at any time during the presentation. Feel free to interrupt at any time. Questions are always useful. I will try to keep an eye on the Teams chat, which I have on my second screen over here, and that's why I sometimes look to this other side because I'm looking at the second screen. But feel free to also use the microphone to ask questions. I would like to ask everyone to do a little activity during the presentation, which is throughout the presentation, please think of useful tools that might be similar or an alternative to the tools I'm presenting, and please write those other tools in the Teams chat. And at the end of the presentation, feel free to write in the Teams chat any other useful tools that you use on a regular basis. These can be free tools or can be even paid for tools if you feel they offer good value and they are useful to you. And this way we can learn from each other in terms of what tools we all find useful. So now we're going to jump into the first tool that I would like to share, and that's called Search Everything. And the screenshot of it looks a bit like this. So I will minimize the presentation and go to a demo. This is something I will do for all of the tools that follow. I will briefly show a slide and then move straight into the demo. So if I minimize this, I have a virtual machine running here, where I will show this tool called Search Everything. It's this kind of orange orange magnifying glass icon. So when you run it, you get this window, and what it allows you to do is essentially it gives you the ability to instantly search all of the files and folders in your Windows computer by name. So what do I mean by that? Let's say that you have a file that you know had something to do with a QMH project. You had worked on a QMH project, and you kind of want to find where that project is on disk, but you can't quite remember. What you can do, you can do something like this. You can type, let's say, **.vi. Notice now that I'm seeing all the VIs on this virtual machine. And I can type in here, in between the two stars, I can type QMH, for example. And notice I have one result. Okay, it's not quite what I wanted. I know I have a QMH project somewhere on this machine. So let's try something else. Let's delete that VI, and let's see what we get. We get some other VIs. We get something to do with DQMH, okay? And this is what I was looking for. This is my NI QMH project, which is found at that location. I can see the location there. I can right click and I can open the project directly, and that would open it in LabVIEW, or I can open the path. So when you do that, it takes you to the path on disk where that is. So this is a typical scenario how I use this tool on a daily basis. I literally use this tool every single day. I find it incredibly useful. I see Andreas saying also that he loves the tool as well. That's brilliant. I didn't know that about the latest alpha release, Andreas. Thanks for that. But yes, I fully agree. I think literally everyone that I've ever spoken to about this tool that has used this tool, everyone has raved about this tool and has loved this tool, which is quite amazing. A question from John: does it crawl and index disk in the background? Yes, I believe it indexes the disks and crawls it in the background, but I've never had a problem with performance in terms of it bogging down the computer. So I don't know exactly how it does the index so well, but it's just incredible. And even when you first install it for the first time, it only takes maybe up to a minute to scan the whole system. And then you have this instantaneous response throughout, which is amazing. Moreover, there's an option here in Tools options where you can connect it to network drive as well. So it won't then search just on your local machine, but it will also search any network drive that you connect to as well at the same time, which is absolutely fantastic, especially in large corporate environments where there are large network drives. Yes, and thanks, Kabul, for that mention. Yes, exactly. Yes, so this is a really useful tool. One thing I would also like to mention is that if you type something in here, then it will search the whole machine or the whole network drives and so on. But if you want to tailor that search a little bit more, you can do that. For example, you can copy a path from File Explorer, and if you copy it in these quotation marks, then whatever you search for then is only going to be from within that path, if that makes sense. So if I search for this, then this returns all of the VIs that are inside that path and inside any subfolders of that path. So this is, again, another very useful way, for example, to search within a project any VIs that you might have within that project. Also notice it tells you the number of objects that are returned. So in this case, there are 13 VIs returned. So this can be a quick way to get the total number of VIs that are in a particular project, for example. Or you can type .ctl, and we can see we have 3 CTL files in this particular project. So again, this is a very quick run through this tool, but it's absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I use it on a daily basis. So moving on to the next tool now. The next set of tools are part of the sysinternals suite of tools. And these tools are fantastic tools for monitoring and understanding the Windows operating system and any applications that run on Windows. There are currently more than 50 tools available in the suite. But the three most useful, in my opinion, are definitely the top two by far, and the third one is also useful as well. But which one you will find most useful will depend on your use case. So I will show a demo of these three tools. First, Process Explorer. So I will run Process Explorer from this icon here. Notice I actually already have it running. You can tell by these little tray icons down here. So when you run that, oh, sorry, it was trying to spawn a new instance. So I will just click on one of these that's already running. I don't need to run another instance. What it does is essentially like a Windows Task Manager, but much more detailed. It's incredibly more detailed, and therefore it's a fantastic resource for understanding what's happening on the computer. Notice here we have a very long list of what are known as processes on Windows. This is actually a much more truthful view of what's going on the computer than what you would get in Task Manager, because in Task Manager you have applications that are running. But technically, there isn't such a thing as an application in Windows. There is such a thing as a process on Windows. So on Windows, you run processes, and an application could be formed by multiple processes communicating to each other in the background, if that makes sense. But actually, the unit of execution is processes. That's why the tool is called Process Explorer. Okay, so we see here all the processes that are happening. Notice that you have a lot more detail already than you get in Task Manager, but this is only the beginning. To show a demo of what the tool can do, I created a small dummy application. So I will just run this application. Oh, sorry, yeah, I forgot I changed the location slightly of that shortcut, so that doesn't quite work anymore, but no problem. I know how to find it very quickly on my other screen. Just a second to create a new shortcut to that new application. Okay, so I created a new shortcut here. So this should work, should allow us to run this application. Okay, it takes a second to load. But basically, it's a very simple dummy app that at the moment doesn't do really anything. It's just completely idle. What we can do now in Process Explorer, if we open up the window, and notice you can open it simply by clicking on any of these tray icons that it adds to Windows, where you can monitor the CPU usage, the memory usage, the network input-output of your computer, and so on. You can monitor all that at a glance using Process Explorer. And when you click on one of these tray icons, it brings up the full window. So now that I know I have my dummy application working, I can see it here, actually. I happen to see it here in this list. But if I were not to find it so easily, because this is quite a large list and sometimes it's hard to find, you have this filter here. So if I type dummy, it will filter by name and it finds my application. And what you can do now, you can right click and select properties, and this gives you absolutely tons of information of that about that particular application. Notice it tells you the version, it tells you the build time, which actually happens to be, in the case of LabVIEW applications, is the build time of the runtime engine itself, not necessarily when you built the application, but it's kind of reflects the version of the runtime engine. It tells you the path of the application, and a whole lot more. If you go to threads, for example, there's a tab here, threads. It shows you exactly all the threads that are being used by that particular process. In particular, there are 34 threads running at the moment, but we see, yes, there are 34 threads, but these ones here that have no CPU listed are basically idle. They don't seem to do anything. Only these ones seem to do something, but even they have very low CPU usage. Now, you can never get this information from a regular task manager. It just it doesn't give you this information. So this is already super useful. Then in terms of the performance graph, you can monitor the amount of memory used by an application. Notice that this is quite steady, quite flat here. Notice that this moves ever so often, moves to the left when it updates the plot, but the amount of memory is flat at the moment. Notice the I/O So this is the amount of data being read or written to the disk, or even to the network as well. This is 0 at the moment, and the CPU usage is 0. But if we start and press this button, start reading and writing to file, what the application will do, it will start reading and writing a dummy text file. I believe it does it every half a second. It does a read operation and also a write operation on that dummy file. And notice this IO column now already starts showing us activity, and notice this is the number of bytes that are being read and written. So it's only a small number of bytes, but still it's very good that it shows us exactly what's going on. Moreover, if we press this button, increase memory usage, it's going to fill up a queue with many elements such that the application will use more memory. So when we do that, notice that this plot went up, and we can see how our application behaves when more memory is being used. So this is a very quick introduction to Process Explorer and how I typically use it to monitor applications. Obviously, in this case, we're monitoring a LabVIEW application, but you can use the same process to monitor any type of application that runs on Windows, regardless of whether it's written in C#.NET or C++ or LabVIEW. Whatever it's written in, you can monitor it using this tool. Okay, so now I will move on to the next tool. The next tool in the sysinternals suite is a Process Monitor. So I will fire up Process Monitor. Okay, we get this window here. And what this application does, let me remove a filter here. I will explain in a second what I'm doing. But what this application does, if I toggle on this capturing, sorry. Yeah, we're not seeing anything here. This is what's puzzling me a little bit as well. So let me go to filter, and yeah, I wanted to remove this. I wanted to apply, and then okay. Yeah, that's why we weren't seeing anything. So now what we can do if I remove that trace, what this application does is it's simply listing all of the events that are happening in Windows. What do we mean by events that are happening in Windows? When an application reads a file, it must make a query to a Windows API to read that file from a disk. Similarly, when it writes a file, it makes a command to Windows to write a file. When it writes something to the network as a TCP message or reads something from the network, the same thing. When it reads or writes to the registry, again, it's doing that through Windows APIs. And so this tool allows us to monitor every single such event that's happening in the whole computer. So when we toggle this capture here, notice that we're absolutely assaulted with new events. Notice here how many events are being captured, hundreds of thousands in just a second or two. So we can stop this capture, and when we do that, this stops. But if we just scroll through, this could be very overwhelming. As you can see, there's just so many events that are happening, but this gives you an idea of how powerful this tool is. You simply have this visibility of all these things that are happening in the background that otherwise we would be completely unaware of. So how can we actually use this tool? Well, it has very good filtering capability. So what I can do now is use this Control F function to search again for my dummy application. So I'll type dummy, try to see if I find it. Yes, it found my dummy application. Notice here, buried in the sea of events, my application was also doing something. Even though it's kind of idle, it's not really doing anything, but it is present in this list nonetheless. So how do we filter to what interests us? It's very easy. You can right-click and hit this option, include the name of the application. So when you do that, it simply filters out everything else and gives you only only the events that are generated by the application you're interested in. Okay, so at the moment, these are the filters. Notice our capture isn't live yet, so nothing is happening. If we restart the capture, notice we get more events periodically. Now, if we start reading and writing the file, it's done something there. Yeah, lots of registry key events, which are not part of the LabVIEW code that I wrote. So these must be something that the LabVIEW runtime does in the background every so often as well. So yeah, the application doesn't contain code to read and write from registry keys, but clearly something is going on. Yes, exactly. Thanks, Jesper. I just moved the window. Exactly. That's what happened. I just clicked on the window and moved it, and that's why all of that happened. Yes. So what we can do now, if I click on the window and click on this button to start reading from file, notice now the events that are happening are a bit different. We are now reading from file, writing to file. I'm going to pause the capture just to have more time to look at it. You notice we have read file, write file, read file, write file, and so on. So this gives you a clear indication of what the tool, what the application is doing in the background. So again, this can be a super useful tool for inspecting what applications are doing in the background, and security professionals who are working as their main profession to fight malware. They are known to use this tool very heavily to understand how malware behaves, what sort of locations it's reading and writing to, and so on. So just in general, this tool can be just very useful to understand what an application is doing in the background. Okay, so that was the second tool from the suite. And lastly, I would like to show the autoruns tool, which looks a bit like this. So what autoruns tool does is it gives you the most comprehensive view available of all of the processes that are configured to start when the computer boots up. So if you're ever wondering why the computer is slow to boot up and why it takes many minutes perhaps to kind of become usable after it first boots up, then this can be a tool to help you see everything that's configured to start when the computer boots up. Again, there's just very many entries here, but yeah. That's a very quick overview of what it does. So now I'm going to have to move on because there's still quite a lot of other tools to have a look at. Just to mention that there is an excellent book which is shown here that discusses all of the tools in the suite in much more depth and shows exactly how to use them in practice, and so on. And I happen to have this book, and it's indeed a fantastic resource. It's an excellent book, and it's written by the creator of the tools themselves. The next suite of tools, I believe Enrique already mentioned them. So thanks for that, Enrique. I fully agree that these are super useful, which are the Windows Power Toys suite. So this is another free suite of tools. I would say that this suite is for the Windows Power user. I would say that the sysinternals tools that we just looked at, they are more for a hardcore Windows programmer or a LabVIEW programmer like we are. These tools are not so much for programmers, but can be useful for programmers, but they can be useful for power users as well. There are 23 tools at present. And some of the most useful are these 5 here, which I'm going to show a quick demo of right now. So starting with the one called Power Rename. By the way, before I show the demo, when you install this suite of tools, you get this little tray icon down here. And when you open that icon, you get a dashboard, something like this, where you can enable or disable these tools. And also you can see a list of all the tools available, which are named here on the left. So this is the full list of tools. I must admit, many of these tools I haven't used yet. I've just used a few of them, and I found them very useful already. So again, depends on the use case. Everyone might find different use cases for these tools. So now, if I demo Power Rename, now I have a folder here. And I just created some dummy text files in this folder. So what if, say, I wanted to quickly rename all of them, instead of being called dummy text file 1, dummy text file 2, and so on, I want them to be named, let's say, funny text file 1, funny text file 2, and so on. Well, traditionally, you would have to rename each one, perhaps by pressing the F2 key to start renaming and so on. That's quick enough. But this tool allows you to select all of them and right-click, and then you have this option here, Power Rename. It brings up this window, and what you can do? Oh, you can see it remembered the text I had typed before. So what we can do is search for this text. Let's say this, and we can replace that with something else. And notice it shows us the original names, the new names. When we're happy, we can click apply, or so apply and close the window. So okay, let's do that. Apply and close, and notice it's renamed them to funny and so on. So yeah, this is really useful. I noticed another comment from Jesper that the fancy zones utility is very useful as well. Yes, thanks, Jesper. I must admit, I read about that the fancy zones tool, but I haven't used it myself just yet. But yeah, I read that it's very useful. Yes, the second tool I would like to show in this suite is the image resizer. It's called image resizer. I also use this quite regularly, not just for professional use, but also for personal use when taking photos on a holiday and so on. Sometimes the photos nowadays are very large in size, I find. So even when you take a photo with a mobile phone, let alone with a DSLR camera, the photo sizes are very large. They could be 4 megabytes, 6 megabytes, 8 megabytes, and so on. And sometimes what's in the photo is not so important. You can live with a lower resolution that would save a bit of disk space. So this tool comes in handy with that. Here I have just some photos of the Clifton Suspension Bridge. And what you can do is you can select all of them. You can right click, and you have this option here, resize pictures. And when you come here, you have some options. You can select different sizes. You can also select a custom size. But let's say I want to resize them to a medium size. By the way, notice I just want to show here the current size of the files is quite large. I mean, the dimensions in terms of resolution are quite large. But once we select this and do resize, it's going to change the resolutions. Notice that it changed them, and all of them are much smaller in size now. I see some more suggestions from Andreas. Yeah, thanks for that, Andreas. Yep. Next, I would like to show the color picker tool. So color picker is something that you can see here. It can be activated with this combination of keys, Windows Shift C. So when I press Windows Shift C, you get this. You see my mouse cursor now shows a color, and whenever you hover over anything, it shows you the color code for that. And when you're happy you selected what you wanted, you can click, and then it brings up this window that has the hex code, the RGB code, and so on. So then you can copy this and paste it in your LabVIEW application and so on. Again, so just a very small but very useful utility, just to more quickly capture the RGB colors of things. Next, I want to show that there is this option called Always on Top, which simply allows you to force a window to always stay on top, kind of like a modal window would do in LabVIEW. So if I open one of these photos and I put it here, and then using this tool, I can press Windows Control T. So Windows Control T, and oh, sorry, it already put the window itself on top. Okay, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to put this window on top, Windows Control T. Okay, now it put this window on top, which is what I wanted. Notice you get this big blue banner to make it very clear that it's always on top. And what you can do now is, if somehow another window comes behind it, it can never be on top because this is forced to be on top. So again, just I found it a very interesting but potentially useful utility. And lastly, it has this very small tool called Awake, which simply, when you turn it on, it will not allow your computer to go to sleep. So I know in the past a workaround I used to use, and I know some people used to use, is to put a PowerPoint presentation in slideshow mode, and that keeps the computer awake. It will never go to sleep, but that's a bit of a hack. So yeah, this is just much easier, and when you turn it on, the computer will stay awake forever if you need to do that. Okay, so moving on. The next tool I want to I want to show is paint.net. So paint.net is again a free program that enables us. I have the app here, enables us to edit pictures essentially. It's essentially an alternative to Adobe Photoshop, I believe, or possibly even to Adobe Illustrator. I'm definitely not an expert in this field at all, but I often need to take screenshots and annotate screenshots, perhaps by adding arrows or text to screenshots. So what we can do using this, you can load an image like this. And this is just a screenshot of the block diagram of the NIQMH template project. And let's say I wanted to add some text. You can do this. You can add text. This is a text notation. You can of course change the color of the text. You can change the size to be much bigger, and so on. Of course, you can use layers as well. So you can add new layers and you can name them. This is a new layer, and you can work with layers just in the same way as you would do in Photoshop and so on. But the key thing I found with this tool is, number one, it's completely free, which is amazing. And number two is extremely useful, easy to use, and more intuitive than Photoshop. I found it's very intuitive to use, and perhaps it's not quite as powerful as Photoshop for someone who does graphic design for a living and so on. But I think for people like us, for programmers who just need to annotate screenshots and technical documents and so on, this is more than enough, and it's a fantastic tool. You can, of course, resize images as well. For example, you can resize it by percentage, so you can make it 50% the size, for example, and so on. So yeah, it's a very useful tool. Okay. I see someone else saying that they love paint.net. That's fantastic. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. The next tool I would like to show is this tool called WinMerge. WinMerge is a tool that allows us to perform diffs essentially between folders and also between files. So let's see how that looks. I have a demo here. Just to mention, I think I can hear someone's audio. Okay, I think that's gone now. That's great. Okay, so let's go to WinMerge. So again, I have a small demo here. When you press that button, it allows you to input a file or folder that's going to be compared with another file or folder. In this case, I have these two dummy folders. I'm going to compare them, and notice that the folders kind of contain the same thing. By the way, it's a folder hierarchy, so we can compare whole folder hierarchies. But I can see that there's a difference here. This file somehow is different. Just this file in this folder and so on. Everything else seems to be the same. So this is already super useful, because in our project we often have many VIs, many deep nested folders. This can be useful to kind of see differences between VIs and so on. I know we all use Git. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting this as an alternative to Git. Of course, Git is number one, but sometimes you have to use these sort of tools as well. And moreover, now when you double click on the file in question, that's different. When you do that, it creates a new tab here. So I still can go back to my previous comparison between folder hierarchies, but I now can have a look at the difference between the contents of these files, and notice that one of them contains hello world, the other contains lorem ipsum. So that is the difference, which is great. So yeah, again, a very useful tool. There is an alternative to it called Beyond Compare that I know is very popular in industry, and I've used it myself. Beyond Compare, it's an excellent tool. Beyond Compare is a paid-for tool. However, it comes with a very generous trial period of, I believe, 30 days. But it measures the days not just from the moment you install it. It actually just counts the days that you are using the tool. So if you use the tool for a day and then don't use it for, let's say, a week, and then use it for another day, then that only counts as 2 days of your 30-day trial of your Beyond Compare. So Beyond Compare can be a very useful alternative as well. But WinMerge is completely free. Next, I would like to show a tool called TreeSize, the free version. This also comes with a premium version that's paid for, but I've always just used the free version. I found it to be good enough. I can, again, bring up the virtual machine that I have here. Let me minimize this. And this is essentially the TreeSize interface that we can see here. It's simply a tool to quickly scan the C drive or the D drive, whatever drive you want, or folder hierarchy you want, and it very quickly displays the size of those files and folders. So this is, I find it very useful, for example, when a computer gets low on free space, perhaps because too many NI software has been installed, for example, too many LabVIEW versions with drivers and test stand and so on. When you do all that, your C drive can kind of explode in size. So sometimes you can use this tool to just kind of look at what folders are occupying the most amount of space and kind of target those folders. The tool I found to be very responsive, very quick to scan. I think scanning normally takes under a minute or so. Obviously, it's going to depend on your the size of your disk and so on, but it's very, very quick. So yeah, again, just a useful free tool. Okay, let's go back to the next tool. I'm mindful on time. So the next tool is the HXD tool, which is a free hex viewer of viewing the hex contents of files. So if I open the tool from here, I have it here. Now, if we open, let's say, this file, notice that it shows us the hex contents of the file in terms of its hex bytes, and also it has this decoded text. So whenever it can detect some ASCII text, it's going to display it like that. If it cannot detect any ASCII text, it's not going to say anything here. It's just going to give you the bytes themselves. And if we open the other file, again, is the same thing, but this one contains hello world instead of that. Also, when you highlight the text, it highlights the bytes that correspond to that piece of text. Yeah, I'm just reading the comments here. Yeah, I see some other very useful comments. Yeah. I used to use this tool quite a lot, this HXD editor, but more recently there is a plugin to Visual Studio Code, to VS Code, that can display hex text as well. So I found myself using the VS Code hex plugin quite a lot as well. But I still use HXD as well, depending on the situation. Next, I mean, this one is just a PDF reader. It's called Sumatra PDF. We all work with PDFs all the time, I'm sure, and I know that we probably all use the ubiquitous Adobe Reader free tool, which seems to be everywhere and seems to dominate the market completely somehow, which, you know, good to them. And it's a good tool. But my problem with the Adobe Reader is that it seems to be very bloated and kind of tries to get you to buy the non-free version, the premium version, all the time. It's too kind of in your face. So I was looking for an alternative, and I found this one, and I'm very happy with it. So what we can do is I can load Adobe PDF here, and I have a demo. Let me see here. I have an example file, in this case, the Serial Developer Guide, which is a large PDF file. So let's open this in Adobe Acrobat. Notice when you do that, it pops up with this bar here, all the tools that allow you perhaps to fill and sign the document, to prepare a form, and so on. It also tells you about the free 7-day trial. Most of the time, 95% of the time, I'm not interested in any of these tools. I simply want to read the document, and that's it. Now, yes, if you want to use these tools, of course, the Adobe one is useful. But I find it annoying that every time when I open a document, I then have to press that button to make it go away, and so on. So what I've been doing with Sumatra PDF, notice when you double click, It's my default editor. That's why when you double click, it opens it by default. It just opens the document for you, and that's it. There's no other tools, no other bells and whistles. It just gives you the document that you can read. It's very simple. You cannot fill or sign or do anything else, but it just does the 95% use case better than the main editor. Also, it opens the files more quickly than Adobe PDF, I noticed. So, when you open tens of PDFs at the same time, the Adobe one seems to take like half a second to a second to load each one. This one opens them in milliseconds. So yeah, it's really good. And I notice Luis is mentioning Foxit Reader as well. Yeah, brilliant. That's free and it can alter the files as well. I'll have a look at it as well. Yeah. Okay. Next, it's GreenShot, and this is the last tool of the presentation. GreenShot is a free tool for taking screenshots. It's better than the window snipping tool in some aspects, in some ways. However, the latest version of the window snipping tool is excellent too, especially in the latest up-to-date version of Windows 11, which is what I'm using here. So I'm actually very impressed with recent updates to Windows snipping tool, and it's a great tool, and that kind of reduced my need for GreenShot, but I still do use GreenShot on a regular basis. So what does GreenShot do? Well, GreenShot gives you this again, this tray icon as well, and what you can do, you can right click on it. You also have these keyboard shortcuts. So once you get familiar with the shortcuts, you don't need to right click there. You can just use the shortcuts. But you can, for example, capture a region. So when you do that, when you press that, you get this crosshair type look, and you can select an area and take a screenshot, and then you have an options to save the screenshot as a file or open it in an image editor or copy it to the clipboard. So what I normally do as well, I open it in this image editor that comes with the tool. So this is the GreenShot image editor. It's quite a primitive and simple image editor, but it can be useful on its own as well sometimes. For example, if you just need to add some arrows to your screenshot, you can add an arrow like that, for example. And you can save the screenshot and send it to someone like that. So that can be a very quick way of editing your photo. Now, if you need to edit a bit more in depth than this, then again, I would recommend paint.net, which is this tool here. It's much more fully featured. Of course, it gives you a lot more, and it's got a better UI as well. It's easier to use in a sense. But if all you need is some very simple editing, then the built-in image editor can be good sometimes as well. And that brings us to the end of the presentation. There is this table here, which is the tools summary, which shows all of the tools that were discussed in this presentation together with the URL where they can be downloaded from. And like I mentioned, this presentation is on GitHub as well. So if anyone needs to download these links, you find it there. So I would like to thank you very much for your attention. And yeah, of course, if there are any other questions, please ask them now. Thank you.
Nice one, Petru. That was class. Loads of really good tips in there. Loads of stuff I've not seen before as well. So yeah, really useful from my perspective.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that you found some of them at least useful.
Yeah, definitely.